What do you suppose I told you that the dark secrets of the US government are not supposed to be discovered? Top secret files kept away in Steel Vault's pages, so disturbing that even tough CIA agents, men and women who had been trained to stare down terrorists and killers, had to question if they had slipped beyond the boundary of the too dark to ever see the light again. These are the torture files of CIA. You have read snatches in the news. You have read the arguments that there was a need to have enhanced interrogation. But what I am going to tell you is much deeper. These are the secret data, repressed history, the top secret concessions covered with black bars of redacting. Stories that were not destined to be published. And when you listen to them, you will never look at the CIA or your government in the same light again. Fear gripped America in the aftermath of the attacks of 9/11. All the cities were afraid all the faces might be dangerous. The CIA was granted a blank check in that panic atmosphere, being allowed to do whatever it could to prevent the next attack. But out in the gloom of that desperation, a rewriting of morality was done. The documents reveal that it was no interrogation as we know it, but torture polished and institutionalized. It was developed to break the body, the mind, and the soul. The most chilling detail? It wasn't random. It wasn't out of control. It was well documented, evaluated, and monitored. Think of a prisoner chained blindfolded and airflown to a prison which technically does not exist. No trial, no charges, no lawyer, a one-way ticket to a place where time is no more. These were the black sites of CIA. In Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, there were secret prisons that were constructed on lies and deniability. When their prisoners disappeared off the globe, Walls' constant screams and interrogators had become their reality, and they began to look at them not exactly as people, but more as puzzles to solve. The torture itself, brutal, but the files show a disturbing creativity. Waterboarding, of course, the infamous drowning simulation that left prisoners convulsing, gasping for air, begging for death. It was not a simulation of waterboarding, it was drowning. The prisoners were chained up, bent over water, was poured over their covered faces until they convulsed and ultimately their lungs were filled. They were brought back to life by interrogators to be drowned again. One man was waterboarded 183 times in a month. However, that was not the end of the program. Inmates were awake days and nights. Or suppose you did not sleep 180 hours. Now pretend there is a lot of light, loud music guards screaming until your mind breaks, until you start seeing things and not knowing what is happening. Certain prisoners shouted until they were unable to talk. There was walling, the method of hitting a prisoner against a wall until he fell. Stress positions were standing, crouching, hanging by hours, in some cases days, till the muscles ripped and the body fell. The most horrible of the practices was known as rectal feeding. On paper, it sounded medical. In reality, it was humiliation. Food strained through the rectum of prisoners. The files concur that it was not about food, it was the domination, degradation control. And there was mental torture. Prisoners were confined in casks. Others were stuffed with insects. Some of them were kept in complete darkness during weeks, advised their families they were going to be killed, advised to them that they themselves would never see the light of day again. It was not only to extract information, it was to destroy hope, to deprive of identity, to destroy the human spirit. And here is where it cools you to the bone. The files acknowledge that much of the information collected was no good. When prisoners are being tortured, they do not say what is true. They speak to you what you like to hear. They invent stories, they give false names. But still, the program did go on. Why? Other files are written like laboratory notes. They do not merely give what the prisoners said they give, how they broke, how long it took, how far they could be pushed. This was no mere questioning. It was experimentation. People were turned into guinea pigs in a hideous experiment on pain. The CIA denied it all over the years. They termed it as enhanced interrogation. They insisted it worked. They argued it saved lives, but cracks began to show. Journalists investigated. Whistleblowers spoke out. Lastly, in 2014, the Senate Intelligence Committee published what now is known as the Torture Report, the result of years of political wrangling.
Report bound.
The CIA is facing the most damaging moment in its history as details of its post-9/11 terrorist suspect interrogation methods were unveiled in Washington. The long-delayed report from the Senate Intelligence Committee detailed the so-called enhanced interrogation techniques.
However, there is a twist to this. That report made more than 6,000 pages. A redacted 500-page summary was all that the public saw. Thousands of pages are locked up. What we saw was horrifying. What remains hidden? That is what investigators are lying awake at night asking. The torture files are not anonymous documents, they have names. Lives destroyed. Take Gul Rahman. He was stripped to nakedness, chained to a concrete floor, and left in a freezing temperature. He died from hypothermia. Official reports were barely concerned with his death. No one was punished. Or Abu Zubaydah. He was waterboarded, was placed in a box that is the size of a coffin, was kept in stressful positions, without sleep. He is locked up at Guantanamo Bay up to date, without being charged with any crime. And then are the men who proved innocent, raided, tortured over the years, and finally released without any charges. You can lose years of your life tortured, shattered, and then red oops. We made a mistake. This is where you will want to spit blood because hardly anyone faced any form of responsibility. The torturers who did the torture, shielded. The psychologists who developed the program, paid millions. Those who approved it, they walked free. Some wrote books, some gave lectures, some were even promoted. Meanwhile, the victims took their scars, both visible and invisible, back to the world and were forgotten and ignored. And then we are left to haunting questions. What atrocities lurk in the remainder of the 5,500 pages? Suppose that 500 of those pages were also redactions about waterboarding, rectal feeding, hypothermia, and psychological torture. What names were erased? What black sites had never been told? And the question most disquieting to ask, was the program ever terminated at all? Or is it just that it evolved under new names disguised under new programs, and it is still working under the carpet? Since we so well know history, is that once a government learns how to torture in secret, it seldom forgets. The CIA torture files are not just classified files. They themselves are a mirror and show what fear may make a government. A foreboding of what occurs when secrecy becomes more important than accountability, when morality is rewritten in the name of security. Next time the words national security is uttered, recall what was done on your behalf. Keep in mind the man was drowned 183 times. You have to remember the prisoner who was frozen to death on a cold floor. Keep in mind the families that never saw their family members again. Since occasionally, enemy is not the most important threat to freedom. It can be even the secrets the government of our own makes us know. And do not mistake what we know as horrifying, but what we don't know, that may be worse. This is the CIA torture files no one knows about. That is just a start.